Hello, today we're going to be looking at lesson 7.3, which is called Analyzing Units. Primarily what we're going to be doing is using conversion factors in order to convert from one unit to another. So in example 1, you'll notice it just says to find the appropriate factor for each conversion. So if I'm going from seconds to minutes, I want to create a ratio that will eliminate seconds and introduce the unit of minutes. My conversion factor will always be equivalent to 1. So I need two values that are equal, but with different units. So the main thing I want to focus on is if I'm going from seconds to minutes, then I want seconds to be in the denominator. So I would put 60 seconds in the denominator, and I would put 1 minute in the numerator. The reason for that is this allows me to cancel my seconds for whatever amount of seconds I might be converting because it's in the denominator, and it introduces minutes in the numerator, and these are two equivalent units of time. For ounces to pounds, with the same idea in mind, I know I would want ounces to go in the bottom and pounds to go up top. And so now I think about how they relate to one another. And there's in 1 pound, 16 ounces. So the conversion factor I would want to use to go from ounces to pounds would be to multiply by 1 pound over 16 ounces. Again, I've canceled out the ounces, I've introduced the pounds, and they are equivalent measurements. Okay, next, in example 2, I'm actually going to convert 3 hours into seconds. So if I'm converting 3 hours into seconds, I first might want to take, first of all, multiplying 3 hours, and you can always just put it over 1 to make it into a fraction. I'm going to actually start by converting from hours to minutes. So again, if I want my hours to cancel, then I'm going to put 1 hour in the denominator, and I'm going to put 60 minutes in the numerator. So those are equivalent units, which make them a conversion factor. The hours then cancel, and I've introduced the unit of minutes. Now, that's not our goal, of course. We still want seconds, so I'm not finished. I'll need a second conversion factor, which will take me from minutes to seconds. So I know now it's going to be the reverse of the one up above it, where we were going from seconds to minutes. So I'm going to want minutes this time in the denominator, and seconds in the numerator. And I know there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. From here, I have canceled my minutes, and I have now only seconds remaining, which is exactly what I wanted. So I can go ahead and multiply across. In the denominator, I'm just going to have 1. And in the numerator, when I do 3 times 60 times 60, I get a product of 10,800 seconds. And that would be your answer. Okay, and the next one, I'm converting 40 ounces to pounds. So this is only going to take one conversion. So I'm just going to put 40 ounces over 1, and I'm going to multiply that by 1 pound over 16 ounces, which is the conversion factor that we saw right up above when we were going from ounces to pounds. So that cancels out our ounces because units cancel in multiplication just like cross-simplifying. And then I'm going to multiply across. You could actually cross-simplify the numbers too if you wanted to. Let's try that for this one. So 4 goes into 40 10 times, and it goes into 16 4 times, which then when we multiply across would give us 10 over 4 pounds. And if you wanted to change that into a decimal, certainly you could. We could have even went further than that, by the way. We could have cut it down to 5 over 2. But either way, we're going to get 2.5 pounds. Okay, in the next one, move this up here. We are going to convert from 30 miles per hour into feet per minute. And so I'm always going to start by writing my initial rate on the left, so 30 miles per 1 hour. And I'm going to write my desired units at the very end, which is feet per 1 minute. And that kind of keeps me focused on the task. I also want to point out that this now has two different units. So we have one in the top and one in the bottom. So I have two different things I'm going to convert. The first conversion I'm going to do is to from miles to feet. So I know if I want to cancel miles, I would need miles in the denominator and I would need feet in the numerator. So the way that these two relate is in 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. So that's our first conversion. We don't have to multiply anything yet. I'm just going to cancel out my miles. Okay, and I see that I have my desired feet in the numerator, so I'm good there. The next thing I need to do is go from hours to minutes. So I basically just ignore the first conversion factor as I'm doing this. And I set up my second conversion factor because this is just going to be one long multiplication problem. Because hours started in the denominator, I now need them in the numerator. So I'm going to put 1 hour in the numerator and its equivalent amount of minutes, which is 60, in the denominator. So now I can cancel out my hours, and that gives me my desired unit in the denominator. So at this point, once I have those both checked off on the side, I can multiply across. So in the numerator, I'm going to multiply 30 by 5,280 feet by 1, and I get a product of 158,400. So 158,400 feet. And in the denominator, I have 1 times 1 times 60. So that's in 60 minutes time. Now the problem is this is not our desired answer because we want to know how many feet were traveled per 1 minute. So I'm going to divide by 60 in the top and the bottom to get to 1, which is basically like a unit rate. And when I divide my 158,400 by 60, I end up getting 2,640 feet. And that's per minute, making that my final answer. Okay, let's do a few more here. So the next one says, a bike traveled 20 miles in 3 hours. How many feet per second was the bike traveling? So this one is causing us to convert a little bit further. So we're starting with a number in the numerator and a number in the denominator. That doesn't matter. So 20 miles in 3 hours. And I know I want to get it down to feet per second this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by again converting from miles to feet. So my first conversion factor will have 1 mile in the denominator, and it will have 5,280 feet in the numerator. So now my miles cancel, and I have my feet, so I can check that off at the end. Now I need to convert from hours into seconds. Now, if you remember up atop, we had done a conversion where we did 60 minutes over 1 hour, and then we did from hours to minutes and then minutes to seconds. Or you could just figure out how many seconds are in 1 hour, which is 3,600. So I'm fine with you showing it either way, like how we did up above, or you could do it like this, where we would say there's 1 hour, equivalent to 3,600 seconds. And so then your hours would cancel and you'd have your desired seconds in the denominator. And so at that point, it is time to multiply. So up top, we have 20 times 5,280 feet times 1, which will give us a product of 105,600 feet. And in the denominator, we have 3 times 1 times 3,600, which will give us a product of 10,800 seconds. To find out how many feet that is in just 1 second, then, we will divide by 10,800 on the top and the bottom. And when we do that, we get 9.7 repeating feet per second. And that's our final answer. Okay, and the last one tells us the average American eats 14 pounds of chocolate a year. Find the number of ounces of chocolate the average American eats per year. So, in this one, we have 2 units. It starts as 14 pounds per year, but it's going to end at ounces per year. So what we notice is the unit in the bottom doesn't change, so I can already check that one off. What is going to change is pounds to ounces. So because I know I want pounds to cancel, I'm going to put 1 pound in the denominator, and I'm going to put 16 ounces in the numerator, which is its equivalent. That's going to cancel my pounds and introduce my ounces. Now at this point, I'm ready to multiply. So I would just simply multiply 14 by 16 and get an answer of 224. And so my final answer is just 224 ounces of chocolate per year.